Okay, I'm Steve Bolden with Art of a Cowboy. This camera makes me look really up close, and I don't like that. But mainly, this lesson today is about the painting process, and I'm going to actually show you what I do. Um, you know, this is something new I started here just for this demonstration, so that you can see the colors and how I mix them. And then yesterday I talked about, from the other angle, a lot of things that I think about as I'm going through a painting. But today we're going to show you a little practical input on it. This morning I got up real early. I kind of blocked in this fence just roughly and put some more layers of color over the background through the fence, a little bit of muddy detail there, and another kind of a wash over this ground here. Because what we're after in the painting, of course, is let me get this picture up over here on my computer screen so that I can tell what I'm painting from. Okay, so anyway, I have my photo up there now, and I just want to show you kind of my process. This morning I blocked these things in right here as a dark to put my lights on top of. And then these are grayed back greens. In the photo it looks a lot more greener back there. And right now I want to keep those kind of faded back, so I kind of grade those greens down and then come back the wash over this and kind of left some rough sporadic spots here. Yesterday I went ahead and took the chaps on down here in the jeans. So I still have not gone over any of this again. This is just general colors like I talked about yesterday. So I'm going to actually paint on this a little bit today and give you an idea of how I do things. So anyway, I would like to say I really like to use liquid fine detail in my paints because it gives it a nice flow and a little bit of thickness. And then of course liquid original, a lot of times I will take that over a painting before I begin in the daytime. Right now I've not done that, so let's get painting. Sometimes I use big brushes for big areas, of course, and I use a lot of these smaller brushes to kind of carve in, things. So I'm going to start out, I'll probably start working a little bit down here on the boots. As you see, those are unpainted, so this will give you a feel for how it goes from the white board, into color. Also yesterday I was talking about gessoing my board and using the brush strokes, and it leaves texture I don't want. I know I didn't follow up with what I do use. What I do use for that base is a roller, paint roller, and a foam roller, and I usually put 3 to 4 coats of gesso on the board, and it leaves a tooth, and then I take some fine sandpaper and sand that down just a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to get started here. Okay, let me talk about my palette just a little bit. This is solid black, which a lot of artists don't use, Payne's gray, white that I mix the liquid fine detail with to start with, so it's the only color that I have some medium in. This is burnt sienna, and I like this color right here. It is called transparent red oxide. It works good as glazes over the skin areas, and I use it throughout the painting too. And then of course yellow ochre, yellow, red, yellow, cadmium yellow light, cerulean blue, and alizarin crimson. And I don't put them all out in a certain order, but because you get used to painting and whatever. So anyway, I am going to use my mole stick here at times to steady my hand. So here we go. I'm going to start painting the boots, and I'm going to mix me up a little orangish color over here with the red and the yellow. The boots are kind of really an orange, and again I start out with a darker color so that I can lay highlights over that. And so I dip back into my medium and get it to the consistency that I kind of like. So these boots are going to be kind of a stronger orange to begin with, and then lighter oranges for the highlights. So basically, I am just going to get some color on there. And I like these little brushes. For some reason, I've gotten used to painting with them. I know a lot of oil painters use big, thick brushes for about everything, and that's just not my style. So I kind of go around the edges of the drawing that I want for the edges, and basically it's just laying in an orange color coming up to the edges of where I want the boots, where I've drawn the boots in already. So we kind of get that in there. Some places are thin, and most of this layer is thin. I do that thin layer over most of the paintings. So see there, that transparent can kind of show through where I've got a crease in that boot that I laid in yesterday, and just try to get all these areas covered. Overlap them a little bit because the medium allows it to be thin enough you can kind of see through it, still see your drawing, at least on the first layer. So there you have that. You have to kind of work around things that you see in the photo. So some of this is just going to disappear totally when I get done, but to me I have to put that original color in to start with, so then I have stuff to glaze colors into, and every layer of glaze changes the complexion of it, which I like, because it's like you have your original color and then you tint it. I know there's a lot of people that probably do this, but to me I've become very adapted to it, because I know that when I'm starting out I do not have to achieve that exact color right off. It's just something close. Until I get everything blocked in, then I go back again and start changing all of the values and all of the things that go over it. Now, one thing I'm going to do is, I see in the photo the sunlight's coming from here, but on the front of this guy's leg and these shaps over here, we have a warm hue coming through there that says the color's here, and it's reflecting some orange from up under. So, and these are still part of the shaps in the bend here. So I just roughly put that in, kind of like that. And then here come the shaps around again. But that's more of a burnt sienna wash to begin with. And then we'll just kind of, glaze some of this in here so that we can kind of tell. We'll work the details into that later. But we'll get rid of that white board and basically pull out those details with darks. Okay, looks like it's going to be even darker than burnt sienna, so I'm going to mix me a little bit of black with my burnt sienna, make it a darker brown, because this just kind of disappears in the shadow back there. Keep in mind, you might have a drawing done to begin with that's pretty precise, and you think that you'll stay with it that way, but as you go along you realize things need to change, and so you have to redraw them actually with paint. So this is what I'm doing with this shadow. While that orange is still a little bit wet, you've got your orange mixing with that burnt sienna and a little bit of that dark black just to make it like a dark brown. Put a little bit more medium with it so it'll flow into that and still let that orange kind of come through. So you kind of give the effect of a wrinkle there in the boot. I'm kind of painting around that line of white leather that comes down. Forget what you call that in a boat, but right now it's not coming to me. But anyway, we'll do the same thing over here. There's a crease right in here. There's a pretty major crease right in here, so we're going to just paint that in just in some strokes, just to get our volume and things starting to happen. So this is kind of the way it goes. There's a lot of adjusting to do in the crevices and wrinkles, and start bringing out the shadows and the depth in this thing. Okay, so, and of course that right there, that little hole, is his jeans kind of showing through, so we'll kind of put roughly a blue-gray in there. And I've noticed that, you know, this one here around this hole, it has real dark, but we'll glaze a little bit of blue in that black and get that thing kind of turn around here. Okay, another thing I've just realized is in these shafts, which I have some, they come up, oh, get me a dark brown, they really come up here around your leg, up higher, just kind of right underneath, you know, kind of underneath your rear there. So I'm going to kind of roughly indicate that. And it gets brown, but it also gets very, very dark in there where there's no sunlight getting to, hardly at all. But since I put the brown in there, you can kind of see where it gradiates from dark to light, to where that sun's kind of catching it around there. And then there's a fold in those shafts where his leg is bending, so we're going to roughly put that in. And these leather fringe coming off of this are a little dark too. They're going to come off of there. And later we'll get more specific with those. But right now we're just kind of redrawing some of these shapes like that and putting them in the shadow and the value, like I spoke with you before about picking out that darkness. And it's really dark, but it may have to be even darker a little later on, but we can actually do quite a bit of that right now. You don't want to put a lot of lights in, too light lights in first. I heard this one artist one time, and it really made an impression on me, that you paint your darks first and then your lights, because I used to paint my lights and then try to paint those darks into it, and it just turns kind of muddy on you. So and you can't achieve the darkness that you really want. So sometimes, like in these boats, I have painted a medium, which was the orange to start out with, but it still is able to work. You're still able to work the darks into that, because it's you know, starting to dry a little bit with that medium. One thing I like about this medium, in some cases, certain things I don't like about it, but one of the things I do like about it is that as it dries, sometimes it'll dry depending on your temperature in your room. It dries faster, but then it gets kind of a tackiness to it. And during the day, if you've painted on this part in the morning, and in the afternoon, by the time you're working back into stuff, it's just tacky enough to let you do another layer that will drag that paint right off of your brush and allow you to come right into that and get some darks if you need it. So I like that. So anyway, that gives you kind of an idea of how I'd rough the boots in.